Collaborate on the next great fantasy epic with New York Times best-selling authors. The ruin stirs and the 5 realms rumble. You are cordially invited to join New York Times best-selling and award-winning authors Marie Lu, Tahara Mafi, Ransom Riggs, Adam Silvera, David Yoon, and Nicola Yoon in Realms of Ruin, a collaborative fantasy epic filled with dark magic, intrigue, and unique characters, launched online in a thrilling new way. Realms of Ruin will go live on November 8th, 2021 with a robust collection of original character NFTs, non-fungible tokens, a sweeping fantastical world, and 12 origin stories, all built on top of the Solana blockchain. Join us in expanding these stories by adding your own, purchasing the official character cards, and playing in these worlds. Your tales can be minted into NFTs whose value could rise as your readership does. As the world expands, the authors will be reading closely to decide which stories and characters are compelling enough to become canon. Realms of Ruin is as much about storytelling as it is about building a new online Web3 community for readers, writers, creators, and innovators. Find a new home, new friendships, and a dazzling escape in the Realms of Ruin storyverse. This is just the beginning. The realms await your presence, and so does the ruin. Turns out the ruin only waited a few hours. This past Wednesday, the kidlit community witnessed what was maybe the fastest self-cancellation of all time. As of Thursday afternoon, as I'm filming this, we're already in the celebrities are people too, guys stage of the discourse. Okay, so what happened? The short version is that a small group of highly successful and popular New York Times bestselling YA authors launched a collaborative online fantasy epic thing where their young, mostly teen audience would essentially pay them to write fanfiction. The long version, honestly, is not that much longer because criticism came so swiftly and so hard that the entire endeavor was canceled a few hours later. And I just want to say this up front. In the end, these authors did a thing, received criticism, acknowledged that it was a mistake, and withdrew it. And to me, that is all great and done, and I have closure. I have no beef with those authors. I am not making this video because I want to criticize them or drag their names through the mud or anything like that. But as someone who has taught kids and teens for the last 18 years, I knew I needed to make a video on this and get it out there quickly while the conversation is still happening, because this isn't the end. I mean, it might have been the end of Realms of Ruin in particular, but there is no doubt in my mind that another author or group of authors or publishing house isn't going to try this again in the very near future, and we're going to be looking at the same situation. It's going to be back, okay? So timestamps below if you need them. We're going to cover exactly what Realms of Ruin is or was and how its launch and subsequent cancellation played out, the backlash based on environmental concerns and the backlash based on exploitation concerns, and end with my thoughts on the kidlit industry and community in general right now and why, honestly, I don't want to be a part of it anymore. You already saw the official announcement for Realms of Ruin at the start of this video. Now, I didn't actually hear about any of this until it was actually canceled, and again, that only took a few hours. So I poked around looking for the best and most succinct summary of what happened, and this Twitter account, Bad Writing Takes, has a pretty great sum up of it. In an apparent bid to create the worst literary thing ever, 6 popular YA authors have come together to try and create an NFT-based writing project called Realms of Ruin, marketed toward teenagers, and which will rely upon using those teens' creative work. Yes, really. So when I read that, my first reaction honestly was, what the hell is an NFT? Google informed me it stands for non-fungible token, which, okay, what the hell is that? And then the answer to that was, it's a cryptocurrency thing, and I won't lie, my brain checked out a little bit when I read that. The YouTube channel HubSpot has a great, succinct video summing up what an NFT is, and I'll link it in the description below if you want to check it out. He basically says an NFT is a digital file with a certificate of authenticity. He compares it to baseball cards, but digital. It's a way for digital artists to sell the original of their art at a competitive price. Yes, there are lots of copies out there, but the same can be true of physical art. You can hang a print of the Mona Lisa in your bedroom, but it ain't the real thing. Fungible means something like money or another commodity of such a nature that one part or quantity may be replaced by another equal part or quantity in paying a debt. In other words, 2 10s equal a 20. Cool, I get it. It means interchangeable. So an NFT is non-interchangeable. On a quick personal note, I'm so happy I'm finally getting to that age where I get to feel kind of like the clueless grandma.
NFTs should raise your eyebrows for 2 words. That's right, that ownership token can be applied to prove purchase of almost any digital asset in a series of digital marketplaces. And people have paid a lot. Huge notable purchases have included this meme, this tweet, and this sandwich.
Like, I get what he said. I understand it. But also I don't? Or maybe I just don't care? Anyway, the HubSpot video also touches on the fact that NFTs are harmful to the environment because the amount of energy it takes to create them creates an exceptionally large carbon footprint. More on that later in the video. I care about climate change very, very much, but I have to admit that my understanding of cryptocurrency and all of that is so low that this wasn't the part of this entire debacle that really pulled me in. It was more about the exploitation of fans. The scheme has drawn widespread condemnation from members of the Twitter writing community. Many have pointed out the irony of the title Realms of Ruin given NFT's disastrous environmental impact. Others have criticized the predatory nature of marketing NFTs to teens. From this description by Julie Cho, Realms of Ruin really does appear to be a collaborative fanfiction project, except you have to pay money in order to make stories and also harm the environment. So the creators set up a Discord where people who were interested joined and then immediately started asking questions that the creators couldn't really seem to answer, or at least not to answer fully. One member points out that many platforms require users to be over 18 in order to buy cryptocurrency. Quite a problem if your target audience are young adult readers. A server admin replies that they are hoping to have an alternative where young people just ask for money. So let's look at the actual response the admin gave. We're hoping to have a way for people who can't purchase SOL, that's the name of the cryptocurrency they're using, to request a small amount from our shared treasury for minting stories. That way, anyone with a story to tell can create it. More info to come soon. Oh, my foot's falling asleep. It seems to me that maybe that's something you might have figured out before you launch the thing. And there are more examples of that to come. Oh, and for what it's worth, Realms of Ruin would have used Sol or Solana, which is apparently more environmentally friendly than other blockchains like Bitcoin. But it's also really new. This article from September says it's technically still in beta. I'm not sure if that's still true now a month later, but the point remains. It's new, it's experimental, we're talking about getting kids involved, yeah. The concerns here are super valid. Another member raises the issue of copyright, asking whether writers will retain the copyright on stories submitted to Realms of Ruin. The admin does not appear to have spent very much time investigating this matter. Okay, well, let's look at what was actually said. This person asks the very, very excellent question, who owns the copyright of stories submitted as NFTs? Response from admin. I can't speak to global laws, but in the US, the creator of a work automatically has copyright over that work. Okay, hold on to that. And this person replied, well, it depends on the whole financial and contractual setup. Someone may create a work, but depending on their contract with a company, or if they're ghostwriting, or if they're doing work for hire, they don't retain copyright. That's why this needs to be crystal clear. The publishing world has a lot of instances where writers create stories for companies or other authors and don't hold the copyright. Hey, hello, that's like my whole job. Yeah, I have ghostwriting clients who are very concerned about copyright when they first contact me, rightfully so. They are very protective of their intellectual property, as they should be. And I do tell them, if they are based in the US, you automatically have copyright over everything that you write that is your own original work. You don't have to file anything. You don't need any official paperwork. That is true. Also, I tell them in our contract between us, it explicitly states that I, as the ghostwriter, hold no claim, no right, no copyright, nothing over the work. But if they want to file for a copyright, they're of course more than welcome to do so. I completely understand that. And the idea that this endeavor was launched without thought to how copyright would work is a little more mind-boggling to me, I think, than the fact that teens can't purchase cryptocurrency wasn't also thoroughly planned for. Okay, on to the next tweet. However, the Realms of Ruin website states that its copyright belongs to the authors involved. There it is. copyright, and there are the authors' names. More worryingly, a promo for the project suggests that those authors will be selecting fan-created work to become canon in their copyrighted works without any apparent compensation. Let's read what this is from the creators themselves. Join us in expanding these stories by adding your own, purchasing the official character cards, and playing in these worlds. Your tales can be minted into NFTs whose value could rise as your readership does. As the world expands, the authors will be reading closely to decide which stories and characters are compelling enough to become canon. Qua? There's so much to unpack in that last statement, but we're going to get to that in the exploitation section of this video. The overall impression from the Realms of Ruin Discord server is that not a great deal of planning has gone into preparing for this project. Redshirt, the most active admin, claims that they can guarantee that ROR NFTs will exist forever and that their server is permanent. Again, we'll look at the actual question and response. The concern was, if the server that hosts the NFT ever shuts down, you lose access. This is particularly the case when it's imagery, like art. So character art, same thing. And the admin's response was, all character and story NFTs will be hosted on a permanent distributed server. So even if the Realms of Ruin website shuts down someday, we can guarantee that the NFT will still exist and be unchangeable. A lot of other projects don't have this guarantee, but we thought it was very important to ensure that the stories you create exist forever, or at least as long as the internet exists. And like, I want to take that in good faith, but given the complete lack of preparation or planning in terms of like copyright and other such crucial parts of this business, I personally, as a fan, as someone who maybe might consider joining this would just not be very convincing to me. All right, and continuing the saga, update. Good news, it looks like the writing community have won the battle, at least for now. And the official statement was, we hear you and we have lots and lots of answers, but your concerns run deep and we care more about your fears and concerns than anything else here, so much so that we're beginning to question the entire project. We need time to think more about a universal approach and whether or not we want to continue. Thank you for your feedback, which of course we appreciate. All our genuine love. And then after that, Julie Chow's gushing endorsement of the Realms of Ruin project, cataloged in tweet 3 of this thread, has been deleted. An earlier tweet promoting the project's Discord server currently remains up. And then another update, David Yoon, another author involved in the project, says all of the authors eventually put out statements saying, thanks for your feedback, we're talking about this, we hear you, we're putting it on hold. Okay. The next tweet, Marie Lu, another author behind the Realms of Ruin project, and actually I believe she was the one who, this was her idea and she invited the others to be a part of it, has undergone quite a remarkable change of attitude in the last few hours. And again, more on this one later, but someone tweeted, this has all the weird quality of an MLM to it. Fans buy in, they mint content, the more readers they get, the more money they can make. It's just a sketchy way to target a teen audience. And Marie's response was, I'm sorry, but I fail to see the sketch in teaching aspiring teen writers that their writing is valuable and worth money. More on this in the exploitation section. Anyway, then the Realms of Ruin Twitter account was deleted, and then thanks to the tremendous effort from the writing community, Realms of Ruin has officially been scrapped. And here is the official statement from the creators. A new update from us, the authors. We are going to pull the plug on Realms of Ruin. We had hoped to use the fascinating and evolving NFT space to power a new kind of interactive storytelling world. In our conversations about the project, it had seemed so fresh and exciting, which is what drew us to the crypto NFT space in the first place. But what we value above all else is our community, and that's you. Your opinions matter, and your concerns have been heard, and as a result, we no longer want to move forward with this project. We are deeply grateful for your thoughts, your feedback, and your criticisms. Thank you, as always. Some of the tweets below this thread speculate, and let me say that word again, speculate, that unless one of these authors themselves wasn't deeply knowledgeable about cryptocurrency and NFTs, then it's possible that someone who is knowledgeable about that stuff was giving them info and maybe even potentially scamming them. If you're here on youtube.com, you are probably aware that cryptocurrency is just rife with scammers. Just take a peek at the comment section of pretty much any video that talks about finance and you will see some terrifyingly convincing bots. While editing this video, I came across another screenshot from inside the Discord by Redshirt, who we know is just the admin person that was responding to all of the questions. I don't know if this was one of the authors or not, but I feel like this response here lends credence to the theory or idea that someone with a lot of knowledge about cryptocurrency was involved here because, well, okay, so you can see this question says, so I shouldn't run out and invest a lot until this is all unveiled? And Redshirt replied, I can't give you investment advice, but we have confidence in Solana long term. You won't be able to buy characters or stories until launch date, but I would strongly encourage looking into Solana and understanding the ecosystem in advance of launch. It's an up-and-coming cryptocurrency with a 50 billion market cap, and we're really excited to build on it. But of course, don't spend more than you can afford. If that doesn't have MLM all over it, I don't know what does. That's sketchy. I'm sorry, there's no other word for it. This response is sketchy. That said, personally, I don't think anybody involved in this was consciously like, hey y'all, let's go scam some kids. Honestly, I believe the intent here really was good. And that is what freaks me out. And that is why I am making this video, even though Realms of Ruin is already no more. Because it's really easy to call out the scammer who texts you pretending to be, your friend and tricks you into giving your bank account details. It's a lot harder to call out or even recognize the scammer who slides into your Instagram DMs saying, hey, I've got a great business opportunity for you selling essential oils. Why don't you become part of my downline? Because that person probably genuinely thinks she's doing a good thing. She probably genuinely thinks she's giving you an opportunity. She doesn't consider herself a scammer. She's not trying to trick you. It's like she's gaslighting both of you. And that makes her harder to identify as a scammer because she truly believes that she's giving you this exciting opportunity and doesn't see it for what it really is, which is that she's trying to rope you into a pyramid scheme. In this case, a pyramid scheme that targets kids and will hasten our climate change apocalypse. As Bad Writing Takes said, for a free alternative, simply join the SCP and then murder a tree. I spent a few hours reading articles and watching videos about NFTs and cryptocurrency because honestly, the idea that a digital thing is more environmentally harmful than a paper thing was kind of hurting my head. But really, all it comes down to is that every time an NFT, this token, is minted and sold, every time there's a transaction, it leaves a very large carbon footprint because of the amount of energy it takes to create. According to Earth.org, one NFT transaction is likely to have a carbon footprint more than 14 times that of mailing an art print. Author Margaret Owen also had a really good thread about this. An NFT is basically the digital equivalent of a CVS receipt that takes out an acre of rainforest to print. It's a one-of-a-kind token that is minted by giving a very powerful computer a unique math problem so complex it can hypothetically be solved just once. Unfortunately, as you can guess, that requires a devastating amount of energy. Even companies that advertise things like carbon offsetting to reduce the impact still have an impact. So that's the environmental component. And to be honest, when your target audience is going to have to deal with that environmental impact, it may be worth keeping in mind. But there's also the business side of it, which is NFTs aren't great for art. We know this because the digital art community was the first wave of NFT investments. What happened was a lot of artists made NFTs for their work and then nothing. No one bought it. A handful of already well-known artists made bank, that's it. Most artists took one look and said, hard pass, and you know why? Because an NFT doesn't stop you from uploading the art it's supposedly minted for. It doesn't stop a rando from saving that art to their own computer or reposting it. It doesn't even tell that rando who owns it. It has zero functional difference from a piece of paper you print out that says you own the Mona Lisa, except the printing doesn't accelerate global warming on quite the same scale. And here's why NFTs are also going to be bad for publishing. Now, well after digital art has gone through the first wave, a lot of major artists have lost a lot of credibility in their community. And meanwhile, one of the hottest commodities is a brand of bad anime lion avatars, okay? It's one more area where quality is out the window. All that matters is how much other people are willing to spend on it. I don't think we need to introduce another channel for that into the publishing business model. And here's the thing, I have a lot of love and respect for the folks involved in the project. I think a big collab like that is really cool, but as a digital artist, NFTs have been bad for the community and the environment. I don't want that to come to publishing. She tried to link a few more, resources, and then she said, well, this is awkward. To be fair, I was going to track down the numbers on the energy usage for Solana, the currency the NFT project is using, since it's supposed to be greener than typical crypto. Unfortunately, the only source I found is an estimate on a Reddit thread, and I tried to do the same thing. I tried to look this up and do my research, and that's all I could really find. Likely because this thing is still in beta or freshly out of beta. Any data on what kind of impact it's having on the environment isn't available yet. It might not exist yet. Given the data we do have about the impact cryptocurrency in general is having on the environment, it seems premature at best to be out there saying, oh yeah, no, this one's totally green, no worries. And as Margaret said, especially given that Realms of Ruin had a target audience that was largely a young one, and they care about the impending hellfire generations like mine and those before mine have left for them. All right, so back to the pyramid scheme. You get your fans to buy in with this cryptocurrency, and if they're under 18, you find a workaround so they can still play. You get fans of your books to pay you to write fan fiction, which, if you didn't know, people have been doing for centuries for free. And then, quote, the authors will be reading closely to decide which stories and characters are compelling enough to become canon. This is audacious. First of all, the phrase compelling enough really rubbed me the wrong way. Like, I'm getting, reality competition panel, some fan fiction writers are gonna have to sashay away vibes, and I'm not really into that. I'm sure that's not what they intended, and this is really all just semantics, but you know what? The meaning and the intention behind words is important, especially when you're an author and you write books, so I'm gonna harp on it a little bit and say, thanks, I hate it. But not nearly as much as I hate the next two words, become canon? The authors decide what becomes canon, because they didn't write it. But canon is what the author wrote. Wait, what? Okay, we need to revisit that whole copyright thing, because either one of two things is happening here and they both suck. One is that these 6 authors, these creators, would indeed hold full copyright over Realms of Ruin and everything therein, including stories written by their fans. Fan fiction becomes part of the author's copyright. Are you kidding me? The other option is that the fans, the people who are buying in to participate, do in fact have copyright over their own stories, which, okay, except then what does become canon actually mean here? What happens when Realms of Ruin is eventually published as a hardcover, or gets a Netflix deal? Those advances in royalties would be divvied up between the authors and the fans who actually wrote the content, because they hold their copyright over all their individual stories, right? Something tells me no. And yeah, maybe they intended for Realms of Ruin to live solely in this virtual space, but show me a YA author who isn't really aiming for a film deal and I'll show you a puppy who ain't cute. Do I sound cynical? Just wait. I fail to see the sketch in teaching aspiring teen writers that their writing is valuable and worth money. This is really hard for me because I have long admired Marie Lu as an author. I love her books. I've read several of her books. I recommend them. I enjoy them. And I truly believe that she meant this. She meant what she said. She believes what she said, and she meant well by it. I definitely believe that. And again, like I said earlier, that's why I'm so freaked out. You know how you can teach aspiring writers that their writing is valuable and worth something? Teach them, mentor them, offer them feedback and criticism, guide them through whatever publication journey they want to go on. You know what you don't do? Monetize their stories for your benefit. Honestly, as a teacher, this is really just heartbreaking to me. And that brings me to the part of this video that I'm honestly not sure right now if I'm actually going to even include in this video, but I just feel like I need to talk it out with my camera. Last night I was texting about this with a few friends and I said something about exploiting teens, and one of my friends responded, "Teens, please. I feel like today marks the official death of anyone pretending that young adult fiction is for teenagers anymore." And this is something that has been its own discourse for a while now. Lots of adults read YA. I read YA. That's not the issue. The issue is that publishing houses have been increasingly acquiring, editing, and marketing YA to adult audiences specifically. You've probably heard of upper YA, meaning YA for an older audience, usually meaning it's just got a lot more violence and a lot more sex. I've read a few of them, some really good ones, but honestly, they would have been better off if they had just been published and marketed as adult books, because the characters are adults. They're 20-somethings in every possible way, the way their minds work, the way they make decisions, the way they see the world, their lived experiences and just where they are in their development. The only thing that makes them teenagers is that the text says she's 17, but like in every other way, she's not. So I feel like, again, I want to reiterate here, I'm not saying that these books shouldn't exist, and I'm not saying like that's not what teens should be reading. Teens can read whatever they want. I was a sophomore in high school when I began what I believe was a 6-year stint of I only read Stephen King, and I literally only read Stephen King. It's normal for teens to seek out adult novels, and hey, lucky them, there's tons and tons of adult fiction out there for them to choose from, and a lot of these upper YA books really actually are adult books. Just publish them as adult. The issue is that when kids and teens want to actually read about real kid and teen experiences, we're seeing more and more of a dearth. As publishing as a whole continues prioritizing an increasingly smaller list of big titles and ignoring all the rest every season, and in the case of YA, most of those prioritized titles are upper YA, kids and teens end up with access to fewer and fewer books that are actually about kids and teens. I mentioned this a few times in recent vlogs, including the vlog that was supposed to get put up today, but I bumped it to next week because I just had to get all of this off my chest. But I have been observing in my admittedly very, very tiny little bubble of publishing that I live in, this phenomenon of mid-list kidlit authors quietly jumping ship. Either they've quit writing altogether because they're disillusioned with the kidlit industry and or community, or like me, they are giving adult fiction a try, or they're giving self-publishing in a completely different genre a go. This year, I wrote a complete draft of a YA fantasy and about 20,000 words of a middle grade fantasy, both of which are now shelved, and I don't know if I will ever open them again. I'm certainly not planning on doing it anytime soon. And that decision was triggered by my agent's announcement that she was going to be retiring at the end of the year. I eventually thought to myself, okay, if I'm gonna have to query agents all over again, if I'm, really kind of starting over, I want to start new. I want to try something different. But there was more to it than that. I came to realize that this particular era of my career was at an end. My agent's retirement wasn't a trigger. It was more like the permission I didn't know I needed to bail on kidlit. Because for me personally, this has just been building for years. I haven't held back on my criticism of the traditional publishing industry on this channel, but I don't talk about the controversies in kidlit because honestly, who can keep up? I was FaceTiming with a friend a few weeks ago and I said something like, I wonder if the literary fiction world has the kinds of controversies we see in kidlit and we just don't hear about it. And then a few days later, the New York Times personally attacked me. So, okay, yeah, there's pettiness everywhere, but it really does seem like the canceling, the clicks, the online dogpiling, the virtue signaling, and now the pyramid schemes and the exploitation of young writers, it's concentrated in kidlit. I don't want to be a part of this community anymore. There are some wonderful people doing some wonderful things, but the toxicity and the greed is off the charts. Maybe it's hypocritical of me to say that, given that this video is me criticizing other authors for doing a thing. But criticizing someone is not the same thing as canceling them, and it's certainly not cancel culture. I don't want those authors' careers to suffer, and I guarantee you they won't. And I don't want those authors to be trolled or attacked or personally insulted, which again, none of those things are synonyms for criticism. They did the thing, they seem like they genuinely regret it, they made the statement, they pulled it back. I have closure. Personally, no bad feelings. I am finished with this saga. But my real concern here is that now that this concept is out there, this whole pay-to-play collab with your faves thing, some less scrupulous authors or publishing house or imprint or whatever is going to launch their own version of it and either bypass the criticism somehow or ignore it completely. And young writers are going to suffer. I did see some tweets that were like, summed up as, oh, this is why we can't have nice things. Imagine how great it would have been to be in a Discord server with your favorite best-selling authors and to be able to create a story with them. And like, yeah, that would be cool. What's not cool is taking their money and also potentially taking their copyright on their creative work and also not really thinking through this whole cryptocurrencies things, especially because you're talking about dealing with kids who are not over 18 years old. And you know what? There's better ways to help young writers and to engage with them. In the last several years, I have taught creative writing workshops, and I think at this point I've definitely taught over 1,000 students. Have I been paid for my time? Yes. By parents, by schools. It never once occurred to me to try and profit off of my students' words. And that's why this whole thing hit me so hard. Like I said, I can squint and see how someone thought this was a really cool, fun idea. That's why scams work, because they're framed as opportunities. That makes us see them that way. And because we don't want to recognize it and see it for what it really is, which is that someone with power, someone we admire, someone with a platform is trying to take advantage of us. So here's what I hope you take away from this, whatever your age. When this comes around again, when another one of these launches, be very protective of your creativity, because it is one of the most valuable things you have. And while fanfiction is not your intellectual property, you definitely do not need to pay authors to write it. I totally understand that the idea of collaborating, and yes, I have to finger quote that there, I understand that that is really compelling and exciting, and to you it might be worth it. And that's your call, that's totally fine, I get it. But as with pretty much every other pyramid scheme out there, the costs are pretty much guaranteed to outweigh the benefits for everyone involved, save for the very few people at the top. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you next week with another one.